Let's begin with a shocking new video from Texas. Surveillance footage captures the moment an illegal immigrant allegedly tried to carjack a family of 8. The dad turned the tables, though, and shot the suspect dead. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-hosts Emily Campagno and Kayleigh McEnany. Also joining us today, Leslie Marshall, a Democrat strategist and Fox News contributor, and David Webb is here, a Fox News contributor, host of Reality Check on Fox Nation, and host of The David Webb Show. Well, police in Garland, Texas, have identified that suspect in the incident as 30-year-old illegal immigrant Jose Ramirez. Here's the video. Some of this can be a little tough. I think we've kind of edited around those spots. But you can see him fighting the father as the rest of the family is scrambling to try to escape. The dad then runs around the car and opens fire. We froze it, killing Ramirez. Authorities say it was not the first vehicle that Ramirez tried to steal that day.
While we were responding to the scene, we received more information that the driver of that car had exited and immediately began physically trying to get into other vehicles in that parking lot. It seemed to be self-defense.
The owner of nearby smoke shop says she witnessed the whole thing.
He tried to get in several different cars. I'm just glad that the man was able to protect himself and his family. It's just a blessing that the kids and the family walked away with no injuries.
You know, David, whenever anything like this happens, you wonder what the court situation looks like ahead, right? What are your thoughts?
Well, one, I know Garland, Texas very well from my days in Dallas. And this is an area with a lot of, at the time, blue-collar, kind of lower middle-class neighborhoods. And I think that's a factor here, because where do you find illegal aliens, for the most part, preying on people? It's in a lot of these neighborhoods. Now, to this point, and as someone who has been in that Texas culture for years when I was there, and what it should be is that you, one, have to be prepared and ready to defend yourself and your family. And in this case, you had someone who, for whatever reason, tried to get into several cars, then was willing to take a car with people in it, was willing to fight. That father at that point does not know what he has or doesn't have. He knows that he has to protect his family. Let's say he drives off with the family and there they are, 3 or 4 of them are in the car. What happens? Is there a crash? Is there a potential harm or death? The right action here I have seen play out in other circumstances, especially in states like Texas. He carries his firearm, he takes his firearm, he defends himself, he was not charged. This is an outcome and a warning to the illegal aliens. You never know who you might run into, except in certain states where you damn near can't get a gun or some way protect yourself and not be charged. But also a lesson to Americans. Be ready to defend yourself, because crime and the random nature of it in this country got so much worse after the flood of illegal aliens from everywhere around the world into this country.
Kayleigh, you'll understand why I started with that and even bring up the court. We have a lot of soft-on-crime municipalities, and David has a point. It depends on where this happens. That might look at this differently.
I love that you say that, because that's exactly correct. The police here said this is self-defense. What if this would have happened in Blue, Minnesota? What if this would have happened in Blue, California? It could have been an entirely different story. And as you look at this footage here, I've watched it several times, close up. This dad, go dad, is what I have to say, because what you are looking at is my worst fear. I can't tell you how many times I'm at the grocery store, haven't endeavored to do it with 3 children, but I've done it with 2. And you think about it strategically. You think about, okay, the key's in my pocket. Let me put one of my children in. Let me put the other child on the other side. Lock the door. Take out the groceries. Don't put the key near it. This dad, when you watch this footage, the car is shaking. He is struggling with this illegal immigrant. There's a woman struggling to get out of the back seat. You see one child run out. You see the mom, as this struggle is ensuing, take out a baby. Yeah. There was a baby in that car. What if this father had not acted this way? Let's play out the counterfactual. Could have driven away with a child, you have a kidnapped child. Yeah. Child could have fallen out, you have a dead child. They could have been an angel family. Thank God they were not. And thank God this happened in Ruby Red, Texas, where self-defense is still lawful.
Leslie.
Well, I know you're going to be surprised, guys, but, Sarah Palin once said, well, Mama Grizzly, well, I'm a lioness when it comes to my kids. I wouldn't need a gun. I would use my bare hands, and I would have won in that situation because, well, I don't, my Cecilia mother's watching, nodding her head on that one. But, look, they are saying they're not going to charge him. Obviously, an investigation needs to come out. You do have the right to defend yourself. Texas is one of those states where you have conceal and carry permits. You know, if he didn't have a conceal and carry permit, if he didn't have a license for the gun, then legally that gets into a gray area. But, you know, a lot of people would say it's pretty cut and dry because you do have the video, fortunately. But to David's point, I do want to point out that not just in Garland, not just in Dallas, not just in Texas, but across the board, violent crime is down in the United States and has been dropping for the past 10 years. One. Two, I don't care about the immigration status of somebody when this happens because the majority of people that are carjacking are not illegal. The problem here is that you have, like you were talking about, Kaylee, as a woman, when I go, I don't have my keys here, but when I go to my car, I have my keys through my fingers, just in case. But I've done that for years, and it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with, as a woman, I feel more vulnerable, and I want to protect myself, but even more so with my children.
Hey, Emily, will you give me the grace to let David respond to what she said directly?
Yeah, violent crime is down is a misapplication of the facts in the United States. If you separate out and even go into CompStat reports or down charging on crimes or changing felonies to misdemeanors, and it doesn't have to include a gun. It can be if somebody uses a bat or a blunt object and a bodega owner and they don't charge him with using that bat, it gets pled down to a misdemeanor at different levels. The randomness of the crime. We do have more crime in the United States, a growth in robbery, which, by the way, it takes time, but robbery tends to become more in murders. I did this for the Bureau of Justice Statistics. I ran these surveys in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. I have seen what this looks like cyclically, and it is dangerous. Part of this problem is that we are not punishing criminals enough, and we are not putting them away. These judges that let them out, these charges that are changed are a big part of an issue, and it is absolutely wrong when they use the broad strokes rather than zeroing on the key elements of crime.
Emily, what I see is a family that got to go home together.
Yeah, you know, for everyone saying, oh, thank goodness these kids are protected. Yeah, but the kids in Virginia aren't. The young women in the high school that were groped repeatedly, they're not protected. The daughter that was at the bus stop that was stabbed and murdered to death in Virginia by a recidivist illegal immigrant, she's not protected. There's no distinction, in my opinion, between these babies and children that thank God were saved and safe than all of those other children who were not, regardless of age, under the ridiculously fragile and transparent lack of protection from the prior administration of these people and the current feckless invertebrates that are in those DA positions. The difference there in Texas and, let's say, Virginia is there's, you know, people are defending themselves. Maybe it's too rural, cops are far away. Well, the cops in Virginia, their hands are tied. Yeah. If they arrest the perp, he's out in 30 minutes. And, oh, heaven help us if ICE tries to actually get him and deport him, because there'll be an activist judge barring the back door and letting him run out the front. Yeah. The other thing is, when we talk about mechanics, a lot of the key fobs in people's cars, if they're electric, if it's on your person, then you're close enough that the doors can open.
They all unlock.
Correct. Right. So if the perp, as that one, runs up and is with you or right behind you, then it doesn't matter if you're manually unlocking, that all those doors are open. And I, like you, saw this as the first step of a multitude of progression of violent felonies. And I would have charged that person, or would charge that person with all of it. I mean, for sure, kidnapping. We know that vehicles are considered, you can use grave bodily injury weapons. Yep. And so that is what that could be used for, too. And I think my takeaway writ large as well was the audacity that person, as he sauntered up and shut the back door when the father was sort of scrambling around. The audacity, because he knows that in the United States, up until this administration, there was impunity. Why should he be afraid of a father who's protecting his family, or afraid of a system that operates with actual consequences? There was none for so long. He can do what he wants, but there in Texas, he cannot. And final point, just to underscore for people that the laws, many of whom mean that the person won't be charged, but many of whom only step in and work as an affirmative defense later. So the state still charges that person with shooting or killing or whatever it is, but then they have the defense later to say, no, I was standing my ground or protecting my family. But thank God for Texas, where he doesn't have to face charges at all. And you see from the passerby that say, God bless him and thank God that family is safe. versus here, where he would have been charged and locked up in Rikers.
Oh my gosh,
One
but
line,
that
if I
point
may.
that you made about the key fob is everything. Because you said you put something between your fingers. I haven't had a key like that. I have to like physically take it out of the key fob to do all that. I mean, it's
no,
a
my
lot.
house key, whatever keys I have, you know, on the car.
One line, if I may.
Yeah.
If not for the Second Amendment in America, you relegate yourself to police response time, and when seconds are important, police are minutes away, and this is an example.
Excellent. Okay, we'll end it there. Good place to end it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.